What if I told you there's a celestial being mentioned in three of the world's largest religions, Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism, but almost nobody realizes this connection exists? An angel that crosses sacred boundaries, that appears in texts written on different continents, by peoples who never met, separated by thousands of years. A messenger so powerful that his name alone sends chills down your spine. So mysterious that theologians still debate whether he's one being or many. And here's the most intriguing part. Each tradition describes him differently, but they all agree on one thing. He's not just any angel. Who is this enigmatic figure connecting three religions that seemingly have nothing in common? How it all began. When angels were just messengers, let's go back in time. Way back, in the earliest texts of all three religions, angels were presented as intermediaries, beings without free will, faithful executors of divine intent. In early Judaism, they didn't even have names. They were the angel of the Lord, the messenger, the voice. This changes dramatically around the 6th century BC, during the Babylonian exile of the Jews. It's there, in contact with rich Persian and Mesopotamian mythology, that angels start gaining identity. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael. For the first time, divine messengers have proper names, specific functions, hierarchies, and among them, there's one who stands out: Gabriel. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, Gabriel is the angel of revelation. He appears in the Book of Daniel, explaining apocalyptic visions. He shows up in the Gospel of Luke, announcing the births of John the Baptist and Jesus. He's the bearer of the most important news in Christian history. But here's the detail: Gabriel isn't exclusively Christian. Same figure, different continents. Centuries later, in the 7th century CE, in the Arabian Peninsula, a prophet named Muhammad has an experience that would change the world. He's meditating in a cave on Mount Hira, when suddenly an overwhelming presence appears before him. A voice commands, "Iqra," read. Muhammad, terrified, responds that he cannot read. The presence grabs him with unimaginable force and repeats the command 3 times, until the first words of the Quran are revealed. Who was this being? Gabriel, or in Arabic, Jibril. In Islam, Gabriel isn't just a messenger, he is the messenger, the angel who transmitted every word of the Quran over 23 years. He appears more than a dozen times in the sacred text, always as the direct intermediary between God and Muhammad. Muslims describe him as a creature of incomprehensible power. There are accounts that Gabriel has 600 wings, that his size is so vast it blocks the entire horizon, that when he manifested in his true form, Muhammad fainted from terror. Now, here's where things get really strange. When you cross the desert, traverse mountains, and reach India, you find the Vedas, Hindu sacred texts compiled between 1500 and 500 BCE, long before Islam and even before Christianity as we know it. And there, you find something that shouldn't be there: the Vedic angel nobody expected in Vedic texts, especially the Rig Veda. There's a class of celestial beings called Gandharvas. They're described as divine messengers, guardians of sacred secrets, bearers of celestial knowledge. They sing divine hymns, protect cosmic order, serve the gods as intermediaries. Now pay attention to this detail. The linguistic root of Gandharva relates to Sanskrit gandha, perfume, fragrance, and arva, one who carries, who brings. They are, literally, bearers of divine essence. And you know what the root of Gabriel's name is? In Hebrew, Gabriel means man of God, or strength of God. But when you look at ancient Aramaic and Syriac translations, you find variations connecting the name to concepts of announcement, proclamation, sacred voice. Scholars of comparative religion, like Mercy Eliade and Joseph Campbell, point out something fascinating. Gabriel's function across all three traditions is identical. He's the bearer of the divine word, the announcer, the one who brings the message that changes everything. Coincidence? Maybe. But there's a problem. The mystery of impossible convergence. The Vedas were written in ancient India. Jewish tradition developed in the Middle East. Christianity was born in the Roman Empire. Islam emerged in Arabia. These peoples didn't communicate, didn't exchange sacred texts. Many didn't even know about each other's existence when these writings were created. So how is it possible that they all describe a celestial being with the same function, the same hierarchy, the same purpose? There are three main theories. Theory 1. Cultural diffusion. Some historians believe that through the Silk Roads and commercial contacts, religious concepts traveled, that merchants, soldiers, and refugees carried stories from one culture to another, planting seeds that sprouted in different forms. The problem? The Vedas predate these roots, and there's no concrete historical evidence that Hindu and ancient Jewish scribes exchanged theology. Theory 2. Universal archetype. Carl Jung would say Gabriel isn't a transmitted historical figure, but an archetype of the collective unconscious. All human cultures need a divine messenger, someone who connects the human to the divine. Gabriel, Gandharva, Gabriel, different names for the same universal psychological need. But this doesn't explain the details. Why do they all describe similar powers? Why the same emphasis on revelation, knowledge, announcement? Theory 3. The forbidden hypothesis. What if it's neither cultural diffusion nor psychological archetype? What if it's something older? Scholars of apocryphal texts and esoteric traditions raise a possibility rarely discussed in academic settings. What if all these traditions are describing the same being because he is the same being? Not in the literal sense of an angel flying between religions, but in the sense that all these texts are pointing to a common ancestral memory, a primordial spiritual experience that was interpreted differently as cultures separated. It's the idea of an original religion, a proto-tradition that existed before organized religions, before Jews, Christians, Muslims, and Hindus, before sacred books and temples. A tradition where celestial messengers were real, where contact with the divine was direct, and Gabriel would be the vestige of that memory. What hidden texts reveal? There's something most people don't know. Gabriel appears in many more places than just the Bible and Quran. In the Book of Enoch, a Jewish apocryphal text that didn't make it into the official canon, Gabriel is described as one of the four principal archangels. He governs paradise, commands angelic legions, and is responsible for punishing the fallen angels who rebelled against God. In the Apocalypse of Abraham, another apocryphal text, Gabriel guides the patriarch on a visionary journey through the heavens, revealing secrets about creation, human destiny, and the end of times. In the Sefer Raziel Hamalach, a Jewish mystical grimoire, Gabriel is invoked as protector, revealer of dreams, and guardian of hidden wisdom. And in Islamic mysticism, especially in Sufism, Gabriel is seen as the Holy Spirit of the Quran in the Christian Trinitarian sense, but as God's active presence itself communicating with humanity. In other words, Gabriel isn't just a messenger, he is the link between the divine and the human. And that leads us to the deepest question: what if all religions are right? Here's the real mystery. What if Gabriel, and the Gandharvas aren't isolated figures, but parts of the same truth that humanity tried to express in different ways? What if the convergence isn't accident, isn't copying, isn't coincidence, but rather an echo of something much older and more real than any specific religion? Think about it. Christians, Muslims, and Hindus disagree on almost everything. On the nature of God, the path to salvation, rituals, scriptures, the structure of the cosmos, but they all agree on one thing: there exists a messenger, someone who announces, who reveals, who transforms. What if this messenger is the point where all traditions meet, because he represents something fundamental about the human experience of the sacred? We're not talking about proving one religion right and the others wrong. We're talking about something deeper, the possibility that beneath theological differences, they're all pointing to the same spiritual reality. That's what's scary, because if it's true, it means no religion has a monopoly on truth, but also that none is completely wrong. The question nobody wants to ask: so, what now? If Gabriel is real not necessarily as a physical being with wings, but as a force, a presence, a spiritual phenomenon transcending cultures and centuries, what does that mean for us? Does it mean truth might be bigger than any isolated sacred book? Does it mean revelation didn't stop 2,000 years ago, but continues happening in ways we can't see? Or does it simply mean that humans, in their search for the divine, create the same symbols, because deep down we all want the same thing? Connection, meaning, transcendence? I'll leave that question with you. Because maybe Gabriel's true mystery isn't who he is, but why we need so badly to believe he exists. What about you? Do you believe these similarities are just cultural coincidence, or is something more happening here?